Well, hello there. We're back and you're back, or else you're just joining us for the first time. If you are, welcome. Welcome to everybody out there in video land. And I'm Charlie Bloom, and this is
Linda Bloom.
What's her name? Yeah. Okay, well, today we're going to be talking about something that we refer to as emotional honesty. And that happens to be probably one of the most important aspects of having a successful, meaningful, fulfilling relationship. And basically what it refers to is just telling the truth. And it's not, when we think of that phrase, telling the truth, we think of giving information that is accurate about something or about an experience that we've had. And being emotionally honest is not about experiences that we have had. It's not about confessing, all the things that you've done in your life, good and bad. It's really more about telling the current truth. And telling it in ways that are one of our associates and friends has referred to, Gay Hendricks has referred to telling the microscopic truth, which is really giving a detailed representation of what you're experiencing now in this moment. What's happening for you, with you, within you now. And it doesn't mean that you have to go to all kinds of lengths and spend a lot of time doing it. But it does require certain capacities, certain skills, certain qualities to be able to know what that truth is that you're experiencing in the moment, to know what it is that is present in your field of emotions, and then it takes other qualities like intentionality or commitment and courage, because when you do tell the truth, you're being vulnerable. That is, that you're exposing an aspect of yourself that may feel uncomfortable or may feel like you're being put at risk because now your partner or the person with whom you're speaking has information about you that could potentially be used against you. So we're going to be talking about that, about what it requires to tell the truth, the experiential, microscopic truth, the emotional truth, and what it involves and how to become more skilled at doing that.
So I want to explain to you why it is that we feel that this is so crucial. We've been in the business for more than 40 decades now of working with couples.
Not quite 400 years.
4 decades. Four decades.
It does seem like 400 years, but it's actually only about 300.
We've been in the business for more than 40 years, and we've been observing the couples that are doing really well contrasted from the couples that are struggling. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the things that sets the couples who are doing really well apart from the ones that are okay or the ones that are struggling. They have a depth of emotional intimacy that ultimately is very satisfying. And when we use the phrase emotional intimacy, we put the emphasis and the accent on emotional, because sometimes people will be blunt and judgmental and critical, and they'll say, I'm just being honest with you. I'm just telling you the truth. But it's coming out of their opinions and their thoughts, and those can really wound. I can't guarantee you that if you're emotionally honest that your partner won't ever feel wounded and upset by it, but it's very different when we learn how to talk about what we feel and what we need. It makes such a difference. And we have another friend, that's Sam Keen, who coined the phrase psychonaut. And I love the phrase because the astronauts go out in space, but the psychonauts go inside into the psyche. And this is an acquired taste. Not everybody is that interested in looking inside. But when you start to connect the dots and you see how profoundly impactful it is in terms of having deep connection with another person, deep emotional rapport, deep understanding and knowing of each other in your romantic partnership, you turn the heat up on the wanting to know yourself at an intimate level and the desire to find the skill set to be able to express your inner life, what you feel and what you need, to your partner by creating a very safe space to speak into. That means that you can fall down, get up, you can be clumsy, you can begin again because you have a contract with each other to do this, and we don't have to be so competent at it at first. We just need to have the motivation and make the right effort to really go for it. So I brought you this beautiful quote. This is Thomas Paine. He who dares not offend cannot be honest. So if we're so busy tripping all over ourselves not to hurt somebody else, to not make them feel uncomfortable, so that we are withholding a lot, that is going to put a ceiling on the depth and the really strength of our relationship with each other. We have to loosen that grip that we have on being so careful, that we want to be caring, but we want to give ourselves permission to move into the realm of emotional honesty so that the relationship can really thrive in a maximum way.
As Linda was saying that, I thought of another quote by someone that many of you have heard of or read his books, M. Scott Peck, who wrote the book, The Road Less Traveled. And one of the things that he mentions, I think in his second book, is that the failure to confront is a failure to love. And confront doesn't necessarily mean, or it isn't limited to the idea of being confrontational. It really means to face something directly. And when there's something that you're experiencing or that's important to you, and it is relevant to the relationship, that you are not necessarily confronting the other person, but what you might be confronting is your own concern or fear or resistance to acknowledging something that makes you feel vulnerable, to confront that within yourself and to make the choice one way or the other. I mean, you don't have to make the choice to reveal. You can make the choice to conceal if that's what you wish to do. But there are certain advantages and benefits that come from being willing to take the risk of exposing or expressing rather than repressing what's true for you, what you're experiencing in the moment. So one of the ways that we can express love to others is by being willing to sometimes say things that are difficult, or to expose parts of ourselves that feel risky, or to say things to them that we think they might feel offended by. And we're certainly not suggesting here that you go around insulting your friends or people in your life, or you say things that are insensitive or unnecessarily hurtful, but that there's a willingness to say, to express what's true for you in a way that the other person can receive that without necessarily feeling judged or being put down in some way. So we really want you to recognize that we always have the power to make the choice of what our intention is in expressing what it is that we're experiencing? Is it an intention to coerce or influence or control or manipulate the other person into doing something or feeling something or thinking something or being some way? Or is it out of a desire to create more authenticity, deeper connection, and fulfillment mutually in the relationship?
So I'm very well aware that there are some people out there listening to us issue this invitation to become a deep diver and to go inside and know ourselves well and to get brave and risky and to speak that to our intimates. And they're saying, I don't know about this stuff. It sounds like it's kind of maybe too high risk for me, or some subjects are too high risk. And I want to honor that ambivalence. I realize that most people, they don't go to the level that we're inviting you to consider going because they haven't seen it modeled. They may have tried some efforts at it before and it didn't go that well, and so it set you back. And I want you to know that you can only do this gradually, a bit at a time. When you have some successes, the success stimulate taking a little bit more risk and speaking a little bit more openly and a little bit more vulnerably. And when you get some feedback that, oh, that was a difficult conversation we had, but I feel so much closer to you now. Thank you for being willing to tell me the truth. That is the success that eggs us on to do more. And people want all the good stuff, all the sweet stuff, all the peace of mind, the security, the comfort, the connection. They want to feel happy, and they don't want to go into that sort of scary area, the uncomfortable area where the resentments are, where the fears are, where there's some grief there, maybe even some hatred there, some rage there, some unfinished business and pain and wounding from the past. And I'm telling you, it's a package plan. If you want to have all that sweet, good stuff, you got to make room for what Zorba the Greek calls the full catastrophe. And there's a beautiful book called Full Catastrophe Living by Jon Kabat-Zinn. And he talks about full spectrum, being aware of our entire experience. There aren't any no-fly zones. We're not in denial or repressing our own experience, and that we're not concealing from the others who we want to have the best possible rapport. There are no-fly zones there too. But we realize that it's a process to get there, and not everybody has the ambition for it, but we're inviting to start where you are. Even a little ambition is enough. A little of a desire is enough. And then it becomes a self-perpetuating process when you start reaping the rewards of feeling deeply known with our flaws, our magnificent failures, our insecurities, our fears, all of those things, our ambition, whatever it is that we may be hiding. And when we're deeply known, when we're told, I love you, we can rest into that and be deeply nourished by it. We don't have to wonder, oh, they don't love me. They don't love me because they don't really know me. When they really know us and they love us as is, that's when we can have that kind of peace of mind that is so soul enhancing.
So around this time, some of you may be thinking, God, these guys really are painting a picture that's kind of grim. It's filled with needing to risk and fear and all kinds of negative consequences that can come out of just being yourself and being honest. And what's the, like, it doesn't make me feel inspired to want to be authentic when I'm reminded of how painful the consequences can be. So just to kind of clarify, we're not saying that this is an ordeal that's going to cause you a lot of pain and suffering. But what we are saying is that there are reasons why most of us are very careful about what we choose to expose to other people. They have to do with concern about pain, about how it might affect me, how it might affect our relationship, how it might affect your feelings if I say things. And we do live in a culture that sort of reminds us periodically, frequently, relentlessly,
Mhm.
that it's not nice to say things that might be unpleasant for somebody else to hear. But what we found is that it is very possible to say things that may be problematic for you, or that you may have some difficulty with in regard to another person, to say them in ways that are not judgmental, that are not critical, that are not controlling, that are not putting them down or putting you one up. And basically that old kind of understanding that if you speak from your experience, rather than pointing the finger of blame or judgment or fault finding to the other person, but speak about what you're experiencing, it's much easier for the other person to hear it.
Mhm.
So we're both very convinced from our own experience that even some things that can be very difficult to express can be spoken in ways that don't cause the other person to be defensive or to feel hurt or to feel judged. And it really has to do with speaking from your experience. So instead of saying things like, well, you made me feel this way, or you shouldn't have said that, or, it's your fault that this happened, or I don't like that, or trying to coerce the other person into taking back what they said, or into not affirming that in some way, but to speak about what I experienced in response to what you might have done or said. So really, what we're talking about is not what we refer to as confessing the other person's sins. We're talking about being honest about what experience I have had in response to you. And it may be that made me feel really good, or I really feel grateful to you, or I feel I feel connected. I feel more connected to you. Or it could be something else. It could be, when you said that, I wondered whether or not you really were understanding what I said. So I want to make sure that we do understand each other. So thanks for that feedback, and let me give it another shot, or just to accept whatever the person said with gratitude, whether I like what they said or not, because the bottom line is that you gave me some honest input from your experience. You were emotionally honest with me, and I always appreciate that, even if it doesn't always feel comfortable to hear it.
So if you're feeling an interest and a motivation and have some fire in the belly and some ambition to really take this one on, to take your relationship to a deeper and more authentic place, I want to issue a warning that there are 3 things that you're likely to come up against, either one of them or 2 of them or a few of them, or maybe something other than these 3. But these are 3 deterrents that tend to trip people up. One is that they're very caring and they're very tenderhearted, and they don't want to hurt the other person. And I brought you a quote about that one, because you need to watch the tricky mind that talks you out of being emotionally honest for fear of causing harm to the other person. And don't believe that it isn't harm to the other person to conceal. Most of us feel that others will not tolerate emotional honesty. We would rather defend our dishonesty on the grounds that it might hurt others. And having rationalized our phoniness into nobility, we settle for superficial relationships. That is a quote by John Powell in his wonderful book, Why Am I Afraid to Tell You Who I Am? So fear of hurting other person. Also, number two, that some of us are conflict avoidant. We fear conflict. We can be absolutely phobic about conflict, and we're not so fearful about hurting the other person as inviting retaliation, and we're afraid that we're going to get hurt if we go to a place of being more open. The third is some people, they just sort of rationalize and justify and say, I'm not very good expressing my feelings. And everybody feels plenty. It's hardwired into us. But some people excuse themselves and they let themselves off the hook, and they don't struggle to find the words to articulate what they're feeling and then find their courage and bravery to risk sharing. Well, it's maybe not going to be gorgeous the way it comes out. That's okay. We get more skilled as we practice.
That's a lot of practice.
Yeah, it's a lot. And it's
I only think
sometimes-
there's like 2 practices.
some of
I don't
us,
think we have to do
some of
that
us don't have to practice as much. Some of us have to practice more.
Yeah,
Some of
I don't
us
have
are
to
the
practice
gender
as
that
much
they
as-
have to practice a
Yeah,
lot because they
right.
don't give as much permission from the culture to be open about their feelings. And so they stay in their head and they have a very mental kind of a conversation, which isn't as deeply satisfying as those who want to have an emotional rapport. So don't take our word for it. Find out from your own experience what works for you, and look to your own experience now to see if you don't feel much closer to people when they're out there on the shaky branches and they're speaking the kind of risky talk and the deeply emotional talk with each other. And find out from your own experience what's true for you.
the key to this whole thing is intentionality. And that is to be able to be sufficiently self-aware and self-reflective of knowing and being clear about what your intention is when you're engaged in a dialogue with somebody. Sometimes we have an unconscious intention that we're not allowing into our awareness. And usually you can tell if you have that intention if you find yourself in an argument. Most of the time when you're in an argument, it's going to seem like this other person just doesn't get it. And it's your job to get them to understand so that they feel the way you want them to feel. And they're not hurt or upset or angry or any of that stuff. And so that is what we call an intention to be right. There may be some of you out there who have experienced that intention in your life. You're in good company because there's a fair amount of humans out there who share that intention with you. I used to be one of them, but now I never want to be right about anything. Right? Well, maybe the things that are important, I want to be right about those. But, the other things. But the point is that if you're aware of your intention, if you can check in, self-reflect, and ask yourself, what is it that I want to have happen in this dialogue? Is there anything that I'm aware of? Is it that I want to be right? Is it that I want to understand this other person? Is that I want to bring a deeper connection in the relationship? Is it that I want to bring more trust into it? What is it that I want to have happen out of this conversation? And when we get clear about that, it's if you find that intention is a trustworthy intention, if it's a worthy intention, then I really encourage you to share that intention with the person with whom you're speaking. Like sometimes I would begin a conversation or at the early stages of the conversation, I would just make it clear, not necessarily just to Linda, but to anybody with whom I'm speaking, that I feel like there could be some possibility of a misunderstanding or a difficulty. I might say, I just want, I'd love to talk to you. What I really want, and I share the intention with him. I'll say, I really want to bring about a better understanding of this issue on both of our parts, or I'm not really clear about something, and I would really like to talk about it, because that will help me to come to terms better with that in the context of our relationship. I want to bring some quality to bear here.
So please remember that being emotionally honest and being really committed to being emotionally honest is not only about bringing our disappointments or dissatisfaction or resentments or the things that are not working for us, which is very challenging for a lot of people to do, but it's also our appreciation and gratitude, which we often don't let the people who are dearest to us know. How much they mean to us, how they enrich our life, how much we learn from them, how live we feel in their presence, how stimulated and activated and, vital we feel by their being in our life. And emotional honesty is about all of the emotions, the joy and the happiness. And when we start getting on this wavelength, it's a positive addiction. Do you know? There's no going back to superficiality anymore. We don't have any patience. There's no bandwidth for just skimming the surface. Once you have experimented and tasted with being the deep diver and being the psychonaut and feeling the benefits that come with being deeply known to each other, there's no going back.
Except when you want to go back because you're speaking with someone who is on a different wavelength.
It's a choice.
And they're not
up to playing.
Yeah.
But for the people who do want to play with you.
I just want to clarify, I don't want anybody to get the idea that now you have to have these deep, meaningful, purposeful, profound conversations with everybody. If you have one or two or three people in your life with whom you can connect at this level,
it's fabulous.
Consider yourself very fortunate indeed.
Yeah.
But be attuned to what, everybody's got their own preference and their own comfort level, and, try to be sensitive to that and not impose your values on them. Absolutely. So it looks like we've come to the end of another stimulating, wonderful half hour. So we are going to be back next week, hopefully. That's our intention. And next week's topic is going to be, we're going to be addressing a question that a lot of you have brought to us, which is, I know what I need to do. Why don't I do it? So we're going to be talking about something that we refer to as competing commitments. And we would love it if you would share our video with your friends, pass the word. And
go to our website, bloomwork.com. And if you already have given us your email, but you still want to have the free ebook, Going for the Gold, you don't have to be a new subscriber to the email list. You still can get a copy of our free ebook, Going for the Gold, Tools and Practices and Wisdom for Creating Exemplary Relationships. You just have to send us an email and we will get it to you, and tell the people that you know who might want the free ebook to go to the website and give us their address. And I know a bunch of people follow us on Facebook, but they're not on our email list. We would like you to follow us in both ways. We send out a booster shot of inspiration once a month, and we need all the inspiration we can get to have great relationships.
Until then,
See you next week.
adios.
I don't have the thing to hit to
Oh.
end. Where is it? Okay, so I need to know how to do
We're
that.
still in the,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it's-